Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Cosmic podcast. And as promised, I am doing the all signs forecast for Saturn in Pisces. I'm a little bit late. I said it would be with you till by March the 7th, but when Saturn moved into Pisces. But, well, let's just say Saturn, I didn't get it done by March the 7th for various life reasons, and I had it scheduled yesterday. And Saturn is squaring my Mercury. Mercury's communication, and and our power was out for the whole day, so I had to go and do a little bit of work in Starbucks, but I couldn't record one of these. And so Saturn is often blocks, barriers, kind of slows things down, stops things. So I had to kind of laugh, really. So, but here we have the all signs video. So I'm going to share the screen. And thanks to, I've got some little extra bits to talk about before I actually talk about what it means for you for this 2.5 to almost 3-year journey, because Saturn will dive into Aries and then come back into Pisces for a while at the end of the journey. First, I want to talk about the house system. So these forecasts are necessarily done using whole signs because, it's impossible to use a quadrant house system to do an all signs forecast. Therefore, I've not always been necessarily a fan of doing these all signs forecasts or the house forecasts for the area of life. But not all of you are astrologers and not all of you know your chart. So I'm a fan of using whatever house system works for you. And my friend Julia Simus of Cosmic Intelligence Agency, she runs it, pointed out that a big planetary ingress like this is a great time to figure out what works for you if you know your own chart. If you don't know your own chart, just, listen to what I'm going to say, and this will give you a general idea of the area of life that's going to be affected for you by this 2.5 to 3-year journey of Saturn in Pisces. We have to use whole signs to do this, so I can move the ascendant around. I use Porphyry house system myself for all my client one-on-one readings. I've always found it accurate for me. If whole signs works for you, super duper. There's also various others. A lot of people use Placidus, which was the most commonly used one when I started studying astrology back in 1990. There's Regiomontanus, which I'm using now for a horary class that I'm doing, and it works brilliantly for that as well. So I think all ways work in different ways. Personally, for my own chart, whole signs does not work, and I will be using Porphyry. So when I do these forecasts based on your rising sign, really, ideally, if you know your chart and you know which house system you prefer, look at where the Pisces area is in your own chart. And it's really a good time to test if this is working for you. So just that little word first. The other thing that, thank you, Julia, pointed out in her Cosmic Intelligence Agency talk about Saturn in Pisces, pointed out that fixed star Regulus is opposing Saturn now at this 0 degrees. Now, fixed stars are fixed in the sky, but they do, due to the precession of the zodiacs, actually move backwards through, do move through the signs over a long time. Fixed stars move a degree about every 72 years. And it was a few years ago that Regulus, fixed star Regulus, the sign of the king, the sign of leadership, moved into Virgo. And I do have to say, so thank you, Julia, for the reminder. So I have to give credit where credit's due, that since Regulus moved into Virgo, I've become personally more aware, and I've noticed a huge uptick of kind of what I'm going to call, for the want of a better word, divine goddess energy. Interest in the Magdalene Gospels, for example. I didn't even know they existed before Regulus was in Virgo. Interest in the Marys, interest in priestess energy, interest in astrology and the rise of the goddess energies, the asteroids, and now the dwarf planets, and really an interest in service as well, which is very Virgo oriented. Now, this is a huge change that's really going to unfold over time. However, I mention it now because Saturn here is at this position for the first time in 30 years, opposing Regulus. Now, if do I want to do this, and can I do this? Let me have a look. Will Saturn oppose? No, it won't let me show you last time that Saturn opposed Regulus, but about 30 years ago. That would have been, I think, at the end of Leo and Aquarius. So we're really in new energy in huge ways. However, there's even more. So thanks, Julia, for alerting me to that. But I've also left in dwarf planet Haumea, which was only fairly recently discovered since the last time Saturn was here before. It was around 2006-07. Haumea, the goddess of creation, the Hawaiian goddess who is pure creation. She could birth other deities from any part of her body, and she's just pure creation. She gave birth to Pele, who most people have heard of, the goddess of the volcanoes in Hawaii. Haumea has been hovering at 0 Scorpio for a while. She's actually going to dip back into Libra this year, but then she'll be in Scorpio for for quite a lot of years. So she's at 0 degrees too. So we've got Regulus at 0 degrees, Haumea at 0 degrees Scorpio. And Circe, the witch, who is one of the asteroids I've been tracking quite a lot because she's the sorceress, the alchemist, the witch. She's at 1 degree Capricorn. So look at this pattern forming when Saturn moved into Pisces. This is one thing I did not mention in my Saturn in Pisces video. It's forming what's called an envelope pattern, and it's all in feminine signs, earth and water. And with Haumea being birth, Regulus just, she'll never change. Regulus will never move out of Virgo in our lifetimes because it moves 72. It takes 72 years to move a degree. This is huge. Circe moves a lot faster. Asteroids usually have about 4.5-year orbit. But it feels like all this magic of birth and birthing a more feminine, a more caring, a more service-oriented, spiritually connected world is coming through with this Saturn ingress into Pisces. One other thing I did not mention as well when I did my Saturn in Pisces video is that Saturn and Pluto are in a semi-sextile aspect on this ingress, and right before their exact semi-sextile, which is 1 sign apart, aspect was on March the 3rd, right before Saturn moved into Pisces. And that is an opening semi-sextile from the conjunction that happened on January the 20th, 2022. Saturn and Pluto were conjunct, and we all kind of know what happened in January 2020. Did I say January 2022? January the 12th, 2020, when the pandemic started, really, and a lot of other chaos in the world really kind of kicked off. Saturn and Pluto were together alongside. There was also the Sun, Mercury, and Ceres were all there as well. And so this is also, Saturn's ingress is also kind of Saturn leading the way from moving away from Pluto, from that chaos that was caused. The two will make their actual sextile aspect, which is the next exact aspect in 2026. But now Saturn is kind of forging ahead and moving into this new ground. And Saturn is about building and achievement and about the rules you can see globally, we've been looking at the kind of structures and rules since that time. So I just kind of wanted to add those things in before I dive into the all signs forecast. Okay, so to clarify, when I read this, if you only know your sun sign, listen to the sun sign forecast when I say which sign I am reading for, and it will give you some idea of the area of life. Even better if you know your rising sign, your ascendant. If you don't know it, you can go and create a chart for free at astro.com or astro-seek.com and look for the sign that's on this eastern horizon to the left of the chart, and look for the symbol there, and that will tell you your rising sign. And then listen to the forecast for that. That's even more accurate. Even better, though, if you know your chart and you have it cast in the system that you prefer, look for where Pisces is in your chart. All right. And that may straddle two houses if, like me, you use a quadrant system. And though both those areas of life might be affected. So that's just kind of my kind of thoughts about this. You know, this is a big ingress. It's going to unfold over 2.5 to 3 years. So it's kind of more important. This is not just one of those little short-term transits that we're getting through your chart. This is pretty major. Also, as I mentioned on the Saturn in Pisces video, you can look back to the time from there was a short period in May to June 93, but mostly from early 94 to early April 96. If you look back in your life and kind of look what themes were happening then, you'll get an idea of the areas of life that are maturing with Saturn's ingress into Pisces. History doesn't repeat. It rhymes. So if you had a bad time during that time, don't go into fear and think that you're necessarily going to have a bad time again, because Saturn cycles are all about maturity and kind of learning the lessons of time. So this time could be completely different, but it could, and all the other planets are in different places, of course, as well. But there will be kind of rhyming areas of life will show up with Saturn's journey through the sign of Pisces. All right, so let's dive in. First, we're doing Pisces rising. So for you, Pisces, this is in your first house, Pisces rising, or Pisces sun if you don't know your rising sign. And if Saturn is moving through your first house in Pisces, this is all about the face you put on the world. Okay, it's often about your appearance, how you show up in the world. It's a lot about your identity as well, and called your persona quite often. I don't always really see it as the persona, but it's really what you project out into the world and how others see you, especially initially. So, you know, for this journey through it, you may change how you show up, you may mature a lot more, you may pull back from some more uh, impulsive kind of um, ways of showing up. And also with it being your ascendant, and with if you've got Pisces in the first house, this may be about strong personal boundaries as well. You'll hear a lot about Saturn as boundaries. And a Pisces in the first house often has quite leaky boundaries. They often kind of attract a lot of people who are kind of a little bit needy and so on and so forth. Saturn will help you create those strong boundaries so that you can become more of who you are as Saturn moves through this first house for you. All right. So Aries, you get to go second. This time we had to do Pisces first because Saturn's moving through Pisces sign. For you, though, Aries, this is in your 12th house, and this is really going to be 2.5 to 3 years of, it could be quite a lonely time for Aries. Aries, you like to be out there, you like to be taking action in the world, but the 12th house is really a place of the connection with the unconscious. It's a connection with creative, intuitive states, but it's also secluded places and things. You may feel a little bit shut off from the world while Saturn's going through your 12th house. But on the higher side of that, it's a great time if you have any kind of practice that you want to build, meditative practice, spiritual practice, creative practice, anything that you want to work on for that period. I remember when Saturn was going through my own 12th house, where I have quite a lot of energy. That's when I wrote my books. All right. And that's quite a solitary practice as well. So you get the idea. Again, it doesn't have to be lonely or trapped, but it can be where you have to do a lot of solitary work. All right, so know that. So for Taurus rising, for you Taurus rising, this is in the 11th house, or if you know you've got Pisces in your 11th house, of course. And this is about community, groups, organizations, causes. You kind of might be attracted to connecting and creating strong boundaries with friends, but having a deeper and a more lasting commitment. Saturn is also commitment to organizations and groups or groups of friends where you have a deeper kind of spiritual connection. Okay, so it's also a lot to do with kind of your own latent abilities, the 11th house, and the future. So you could be working a lot on your goals and your hopes and wishes for the future for this 2.5 to 3 year period. So Gemini rising. Okay. For you, this is all about your public self, your reputation, your visibility. Could be one of the parents too, but you may be drawn to create strong boundaries publicly if you are a public person, but also even if you have some mission in life, you may be kind of drawing the lines and saying, this is what I'm going to be working on for 2.5 to 3 years. If you have Gemini rising, you may have Pisces on the midheaven, but if you have Pisces on the midheaven anyway, you're also a little bit leaky kind of publicly. People, it's kind of the sign of glamour and glimmer, Pisces. So if you have Pisces up there in your 10th house, then people may quite often kind of want a piece of you, and that's more kind of public boundaries. You may draw lines and say, no, that doesn't work for me anymore. I need to kind of master creating a bit of a boundary between myself and the world. And that may be in your work life or your career life as well. So it's going to be an interesting journey for you, because we're everywhere that Saturn is in Pisces, we are going to be mastering this energy of interconnectedness. And that includes not being too connected and not being kind of a big empathic sponge. All right. Okay, so now let's move into Cancer rising. So for you, Cancer rising, you may have, or if you have Pisces in the 9th house of your chart, this really is a time about kind of mastering something spiritual, something about philosophies, some personal experience of the divine. You could be building a big personal spiritual practice with this time. You could also kind of be learning and mastering something about what you teach as well. The 9th house is the place of higher education and higher learning, but it's also the place of the guru. So you could be kind of stepping into kind of this wise elder kind of hierophant kind of energy and teaching what you've learned about the world, cultures, and spiritual practices and philosophy. So that's going to be a very lovely journey for you. Pisces in the 9th house is a really nice place, as that is also about the sources of expansion and inspiration and your personal experience of the divine. On the other hand, if you are in an organized religion, you may decide to withdraw a little bit from that with this in this house. So just know that. Leo rising, or anybody with Pisces in the 8th house. This is the place of shared financial resources. It's the true house of marriage, to my mind. So if you're in a relationship and not quite committed yet, this is when a time could come for commitment. But it's also really about an area of taboo subjects and the real realms of the deep and underlying reality and karmic and soul material. So, you know, you could be, it's a very private place, again, a bit like the 12th house for others, and for Aries rising. And so this could have you kind of withdrawing a little bit from your usual kind of Leo kind of ebullience and out in the wilderness. And kind of saying, I need to do some really deep exploration here for deep intimacy and deep soul commitment and deep commitment to others. In financial terms, it could mean shoring up your shared financial resources as well and building on that. Virgo, so it's opposing your 1st house. And so this is in the 7th house of significant relationships and how you compromise yourself for others a lot of the time as well. Or often called the disowned self by Jungian psychologists. This is places where we kind of give ourselves away a little bit sometimes in the house of significant relationships. It's where, especially with Pisces, if you have Pisces in the 7th house, again, you may be confused what people want of you, and you may kind of have let people take advantage of you, or people might come out of the woodwork to take advantage of you. But this, not with Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is you getting some clarity here, and again, creating those boundaries with other people. The boundary thing doesn't always apply for everything to a degree it does, but particularly in these houses where you're connected with others in some way is very much about creating strong boundaries, because Pisces can have very leaky boundaries, and as I said, be a bit of an empathic sponge. So Libra rising, or let me get Libra rising, or if you have Pisces in your 6th house, This is the house of work and service, and also health. And it's mentoring and pets and your style of daily living and your relationship to service. It's kind of very, I'm going to say mundane matters, but it's everyday living. It's the nature of work you do. It's the day-to-day work experience, and that's a lot connected with the details of how you look after your body and your health and how you serve others as well. And again, if you've got Pisces here, you're probably a real kind of spiritual service kind of person. If you've got Pisces in your 6th house. And, you know, you probably just love to love your pets and do everything for them. The 6th house can be a place of servitude as well. And Saturn will help you to kind of just get kind of very clear on where you're overgiving in those areas of life. But on the other hand as well, it could help you to build a real good mentoring service kind of practice or work in your life. And you could be really mastering something around that area. Okay, Scorpio. So Scorpio or rising, or if you have Pisces in your 5th house, this is the house of creative self-expression, creativity, joy, children as well, and your inner child. It's also the area of kind of sports and pleasure and leisure hobbies and all that kind of thing, and play and romance and drama. It's a very fun house, very childlike and joyous and buoyant and creative. Well, Pisces in there again is very kind of connected and very kind of channely and very kind of very loving with the children. And in Saturn moving through it, this is going to be a big area of life that you are going to master. You're interconnectedness to over the next 2.5 to 3 years. Particularly if you want to find things that bring you joy and creativity, you could do some work along those lines. Saturn is really about achievement and work as well. So, okay, Sagittarius rising. This will be about the home, or if you have Pisces in the 4th house, this will be a lot about the home and about kind of going in and, you know, and again, it's kind of one of those hidden places where you may go into creating this, you may want to stay home a lot, basically, and you know, develop some kind of meditation practice at home, or beautify your home, but kind of organize it a little bit. Saturn's a bit more determined than that. Pisces in the home can be a little bit chaotic, okay, in the area of the home. And I saw a really funny meme this morning with this person who looked very frazzled with papers everywhere and going, oh, I found it. So it may be a time to sort through your papers or get some help, get an organizer, or to just sort your home out and organize it a little bit with Saturn in there. And you may be really drawn to do that kind of thing. But the other thing about the 4th house is it's your basis of basis of security and the nature of your inner private life. So if you take that chaos from out there into here, Saturn will help you kind of calm that down and build something a little bit less chaotic over the next 2.5 to 3 years. Or you could literally build a home, actually. But anyway, Capricorn rising. This for you will be in the area of communication, the 3rd house, or if you have Pisces in the 3rd house. If like me, you have a book to write, and I have Pisces in the 3rd house in Porphyry house system, this is a time to get that book written. And that's what I plan to use this Saturn in Pisces period 4. It's time to get dedicated and diligent. But it's also about learning style. So if you're wanting to, and about taking in information. So it could be also a time for a real kind of dedicated course of study and learning. But it's about your voice and how you speak and your perceptions. So they will change over this time, 2.5 to 3 years. But it's time to kind of really kind of buckle down and dedicate yourself to something in the area of communication, perception, and learning, and what you think and talk about. So Aquarius rising, or if you have Pisces in the 2nd house, this is your resources. It's how you earn your money, but it's also self-confidence, what you value. It's your relationship to your body and the natural world, and your relationship towards possessions and having, or how you earn your money. It's all about the physical resources of the world. So this is a really good time to kind of build more resources or build a better relationship to your body and nature, and to connect with it in a very much deeper way. And that's that. That's all the signs. So this is a long journey. And remember, please, remember that Saturn is time. Okay, Saturn is time. So this is a long, slow journey. I did notice, and before I tell you one other thing, I just want to call out to my sponsor again, Four Sigmatic Coffee. I'm loving that coffee so much, and I've had quite a few people signing up with my link with the code COSMIC, which is in the description. Four Sigmatic Coffee contains basically medicinal mushrooms and a nutrient-rich energy things in the coffee, and they also make other things, and I am loving it. And with my link you get 30% off your first order. So it's Four Sigmatic, FOURSIGMAT, and the link's in the description. So go and order yourself some coffee, give it a try. There's 60 days money back guarantee, but they also do like protein powders and various other things if you're not a coffee drinker. And they also contain the medicinal mushrooms, not magic mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. I did want to point one thing out. The area from 0 to 7 degrees of Capricorn is where, Pisces, is where Saturn is going to be until January of next year, or for a full 10 months, because Saturn is going to move to 7 degrees of Pisces and then travel back to 0 Pisces and start the journey again. So if you have any planets or angles between 0 and 7 degrees anywhere on your chart, but also particularly mutable signs, so that's Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, this first year or first 10 months of Saturn in Pisces is going to be particularly intense for you, because you'll be having all the aspects and a tremendous period of growth, and that would be moi. So I just wanted to add that other note. All these things came to me after I recorded the other video. So enjoy the All Signs video. Please subscribe, leave me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, tell me how you're feeling. I'm recording this on the 9th, and we're now just 2 days into Saturn in Pisces. Some people I've known have felt quite down. Saturn in Pisces can be a little bit kind of depressed, or kind of yeah, I'm going to say depressed, but I'm not talking clinical depression. But know that, we'll adjust to this energy. It's a big change. So let me know how you're feeling, and I will see you next time.